Welcome back to A Good Pour. I'm Kathryn Good, your host. This is Conversations About Good Work. And today we have a big treat. Jared Stancil is in the house, he runs everything at Anchor Transportation. And this is, I can already tell, just going to be a very entertaining episode.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Becker recommended you.
Yes.
And we talked on the phone about what good work you do, and it's totally in line with this podcast, and I'm excited for you to share just kind of how you run the company. But we also know each other through Young Life.
Yes.
You are currently, what are you? Are you in charge still? I don't even know.
I am on a committee.
You're
I'm part
on
of the committee, which is the community-based committee that oversees how staff is doing and programs and fundraising. And
But you were like head of the committee. Are you head of the committee anymore?
I was the chair, but
Okay.
now I'm not the chair. I'm just a regular
regular
committee
member.
person.
Me too.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So Becker did recommend you for this podcast. I'm excited to learn more about Anchor Transportation, especially just how you kind of infuse good work everywhere. I see the buses all the time. I feel like they take every good group around, except for I think you did Alabama, and I'm not sure that's a good group. But anyway, tell me about Anchor Transportation.
Okay. And we're not disparaging the University of Alabama in any way, shape, or form for all our University of Alabama friends.
Well, you don't have to. I can.
You can. So we are Anchor Transportation. So we have a charter bus service. So if there are groups of people that want to go somewhere, we take them. And so what's a little bit different about charter bus is every trip is different. Every group is different. We don't have a regular schedule. Someone can't just get on the bus and it gets in Atlanta at 8:05. So from that, we have all different types of clients. So the majority of my clients are university athletes and professional athletes. And so imagine it's football season and someone is coming into town to play your favorite football team. They fly in on Friday. We pick them up at the airport, take them to the game on Saturday, take them right back to the airport. So that's a typical team that we do. But then teams also leave, so we'll take them to their games. And then some teams use us exclusively no matter what city they're in. So we'll go this year with a certain football team as far as Wisconsin and Oklahoma for their away games because we provide transportation even when they're on site. So that is the majority of our customers. But then we also transport troops, military, student groups. So in 8th grade in Tennessee, a lot of them go to Washington, D.C. So around February, March, April, a lot of buses go to Washington, D.C., taking those groups. And then from church groups, church camps in June. So always a little bit different, but generally groups of people want to go somewhere. That's what we do. We provide the bus and the driver.
And it's based here in Hendersonville?
Nope. So we are based in North Nashville is where I'm at,
Okay.
Off Old Hickory Boulevard.
Okay.
And then also have an office around Jackson, Tennessee, Northwest Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama. So 4 locations.
And how many buses are in this fleet?
I looked earlier this week, so we have 88 vehicles. So 88 vehicles.
Wow.
With approximately 140 employees throughout the 2 states.
Okay. So you are providing a much needed service to groups that are trying to get somewhere. You could do that without doing good work, but you do good work. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so it puts us in a position to meet a lot of interesting people and groups. And so, yeah, we have professional sports teams, but then all the way down to groups that need transportation but don't have the funds to get there. So for our part, working with the community, it could be with Metro Nashville. There are several groups that we work with that maybe it's a special trip that they get invited to but don't have the funds to get there, whether it's performing at a certain location, but also from the school groups through community groups like Second Harvest. We help them sometimes with their transportation to get to their different they have distribution centers. So we help them do some training and different things, and they always come to us, but all the way down to even folks that are, we work with, I'm trying to think of the mission, the mission. So we do several events a year to help. They do these special events, and we take them to Opryland Hotel and different things. So we get the opportunity to meet some really unique people and agencies and have fun doing good, because we know that we're usually that missing piece, that if they could just get the people there, that they can have this special event or something. And so that's a fun part of what we do. And there's a lot of different ones that we are participating in here and Alabama.
Tell me about some of the employee programs that you have.
It started back in COVID. So COVID for us was not good, was not fun. And so we completely closed our business in March, April 2020. And so it was a different time for us because we were what was considered, do you remember essential services? Mm-hmm. So we were an essential service, but there's nobody going to put random people on a vehicle and clothes and send them somewhere. So we had the capacity to do work, we just didn't have work. And so from that, we kind of shut down and we didn't do anything. And so we started with talking to our employees, how are you doing? What's going on? We don't know. We had a lot of we don't know. But from that, during that time, that was kind of before, right when COVID hit. It wasn't supposed to be that long, but now it's a lot longer, especially our industry. We're not starting back. So at the very beginning, we started a food bank. And so I met this person that somehow said they knew how to run a food bank. And I said, would you do that for my people, my employees? Because we don't know when we're going to work again. And so for 8 weeks, we fed 30 people, including families with children, that we just said, we know you're waiting on your benefits to kick in, but you won't go hungry. And we don't know what's going on, but at least we know we can help this. And so that kind of started COVID, thinking about how people have different needs that really I had no experience with, right? I've never had an experience where we didn't have food or we didn't have money to get food. And so from that, as we started working again, slowly, we would find that people had needs that we couldn't meet. So for instance, you recall during the time when COVID first started and everybody's kind of getting different jobs and doing things, and it was all about what are you going to pay me and can I work hybrid and those type of things. But then there was also this other level that we would have people come to us and say, hey, could you pray for me because my mom didn't make it, or I'm having a hard time. And these are the things that we realized, wow, we're not really equipped or do this well. Like I can pray for you, but then you start realizing people have real needs and concerns and issues. And so we started looking at, as a company, one of our values are honor God. We have a value of serving others. And so we started talking about how do we serve others, but in the context of what our company value is of honoring God. And so through working through, I'm part of a peer advisory group called C12, talking through them. I
didn't know you did that.
Yeah, talking through them. Chaplains came out, and it's like, hey, it seems like that the needs that they have could be met, but maybe it's not that they want to just talk to you, or maybe it's not financial, but maybe it's something else. And so we asked chaplains to come in, and chaplains, it was different, right? Someone just shows up and they look at you and they say, hey, we can have a confidential conversation and the bosses don't know, and whatever you want to talk about, or if I can pray for you, if I can help you, if I can share something with you, love to. And you know what? Most of our employees said, well, that's nice. But
didn't use it?
Nah. So we gave it some time. And then over the course of 6 months, we start seeing things like this. The chaplains would say, hey, here's the effectiveness that we're having. We actually had 600 discussions. And of those 600 discussions, what we found is that they weren't talking about work. They weren't talking about money. They were talking about family, children, health, parents. And so what we saw was that this was what our employees needed, was someone else that can say, I've got issues and I would just like to talk to someone. And so chaplains for us has been a pretty big deal now that we've been involved for almost 2 years, where now relationships are formed, and Coach P comes by and we talk to Coach P, and Coach P looks at me and says, how can I pray for you? Mm-hmm. How are you doing today? And it gives me a moment to not think about work, but to say, actually, Coach P, I'm doing well, and thank you. And so we realized that people want to work for you more than just financially, more than money. And it became like, hey, if you care about me, then I want to work for you. I want to be associated with you. And that's what started changing, is us look at folks and say, how can we better help you? And so from there, we realized that we started doing more like, we call them microloans. We found that sometimes employees had issues with housing, with cars. And if you have an issue with your car and you can't get to work, then you can't make enough money to pay to fix your car. And so we started talking to different ones and say, yeah, let us help you. Let us figure out how to get you going. And we really focus on those two things, especially housing got real expensive, especially in the Nashville market. And people like, hey, we want to move, we want to get closer to work, but I need a little bit of help trying to just pay that deposit. So we started doing the programs where we could do micro loans, help you generally with either housing or with vehicles, mm-hmm. to help you do work and do life and get started. So those were a couple of our, employee assistant programs that we started.
So the chaplain program, I mean, it's very centered on kind of the worry that's going on in our minds that could prevent us from doing a good job at work, right? Like, yeah. It's that concern. I mean, there's so much going on in our life that has nothing to do with work that sometimes it can bleed over into work.
It does
right?
come to work.
Yeah.
And what it also shows is that, hey, I care about you as a person. Not so much that you can just go do your job, but that you're okay and that your family's okay. And we don't get to see kind of who is going through the conversations, but as a company, the chaplains will share with us the types of conversations that we're having, whether it's texting, phone calls. Then they'll share with us how often they are communicating. But then what we also found was that the chaplains program, when we had an employee who had a parent was in a hospital but in another state. So the chaplain said, we'll go over there. We'll send someone at that state to go say, hey, let us pray for you. Let us help you. And what we realize is that in the nature of our business, we leave town and go over the road. And so sometimes our employees were dealing with, I got an issue back home. Can you help me with this? And the chaplains were able to do that as well. So
that's great. And this idea came out of the C12. Had you heard of it before? Or, I mean, I've never heard of it before.
C12 introduced to us the concept of doing business as a ministry. Mm-hmm. So we started looking at our business and say, hey, we have Christian values, and how do we share those Christian values to our employees, to our community? For us, it's really easy to provide bus service for our community because that's what we do. It's really easy for us to support different programs like Young Life and other ministries here.
I mean, lots of churches.
Yeah. It's easy for us to do that. It was a little bit harder for us to look at our employees and say, how can we help you? After chaplaincy, one of the things we also partnered with was Right Now Media. And so right now, media provides a curriculum of videos, and they'll take books, audiobooks, and put them on. And we have this whole curriculum that says, what to do about anxiety. And so maybe there's about 20 different authors, 20 different videos talking about that, what to do about depression, what to do about this, or how do I help with my finances. And so we started presenting that to them, saying, hey, this is free, you can have this. Part of our job, we do a lot of sitting because we're bus drivers. So you take someone to a venue, you wait for the game to be over and come back to say, hey, while you're there, if this is a resource that could help you. And so we've had some positive feedback that said, you're right, I'm just kind of hanging around, but now I got a resource to where I can learn something or do something or find out about it. So these are things that came out of being in a peer advisory group saying, what are you doing to help your folks? And how's it helping?
So you talked about hearing back from chaplains, and you may not hear back directly from the employees, but I mean, has there been a sense of a change or appreciation for this?
The only thing I can tell is you're right. The employees don't come to me and say, guess what I just told the chaplain?
Right.
And the chaplains don't do the same. They don't come to me and say, guess what this guy just said? What we've been able to see is the interactions face-to-face where I can see maybe the chaplain and employee are pulled off to the side and maybe they're just talking for a while. And in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, this is working. This is exactly what I needed to happen. Because whatever they've got going on, the person is comfortable enough to share saying, hey, I've got a problem. Can you help me? And what resources maybe can you give me? So that's really the only thing to see besides these reports that have these big numbers that say, wow, there were 600 interactions and
right.
I didn't even know about it. The drivers, when they're over the road, they're able to chat through a specific app and say, here's my issues, or would you pray for me? Or, I'm feeling lonely. And so the chaplains are able to provide them resources.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love this idea.
Yeah, it's been, it's slow at first, but just like any relationship, it just takes a little bit of time. It just, especially for employees to know, like, it's just not the company trying to find out more about what's going on. It's more about, hey, we know there's stuff going on, and this is a resource for you.
Well, and that takes time, right, to develop that trust that they're not coming back to you immediately, and
Right. It does.
So that's amazing. Can I ask a question about just bus drivers?
Yes.
Truly,
No.
if my kid goes to Young Life at Sharp Top
Yes.
on a Friday and comes home on a Sunday, does the bus driver stay there?
Yeah.
What happens?
So let's talk about regulations. So a driver can only drive 10 hours in a day, and they can only be on duty a total of 15. So that means, like, if you're fueling a bus or if you're doing something work related, you can only work a certain amount of time. So in your particular case, the driver gets to camp. Generally, they will stay all day Saturday in somewhere in North Georgia. And then Sunday, they'll pick up the group and come home. So that is a typical multi-day trip that we do. So there are occasions where they may drop a group off and come back. But a lot of times why bus drivers like being bus drivers versus truck drivers is, no, they're just staying and they're hanging out all day Saturday, being paid to do whatever they do on Saturday without any responsibilities for work.
For a specific football team, is it the same driver typically, or is it the same couple of drivers?
Typically, in college athletics, the coaches, there's different ones. The coaches generally form relationships. So I have a basketball team that has been using the same driver for the past 3 years.
Okay.
And so when this basketball team won some championships, they included the driver. He got his.
So neat.
championship ring just as well. So we also have coaches that are very superstitious. So they also want same bus, same driver, everything the same, because that's what makes the mojo work good and they win. So it all just depends, but generally, if the coach has a good relationship with the driver, we try to pair them up each time if possible.
Okay. And then there's 80 some vehicles.
Yes.
Right? There's lots of different things going on at one time.
Yes.
You're very good. I'm not trying to allow people to do this, but you're very good at last minute request.
Okay. Yes.
But I know that it's interesting, like when people are taking a trip and they're thinking about the food they need to bring, and they're thinking about the to-do, or, the agenda, but sometimes booking the actual bus is not thought of, right?
That is true. Okay, I'll tell on some teachers. Not teachers in any counties that we know of, but sometimes teachers specifically get a quote for a bus, and then when it's time for their field trip to depart, they call and say, hey, the bus isn't here. And we say, oh, I'm so sorry. Let us help you find. Could you give us the name of the school or confirmation number? And sometimes teachers, at least twice a month in the months of April and May, will say this: here's my quote number. And we're like, yes, okay. Do you have a confirmation number? So sometimes we scramble around because it's not our fault. Sometimes people may confuse quotes and confirmations number. But here's some other things that happen. I talked about the military. They generally don't broadcast to us their plans very far in advance. So they tend to be within 72 hours saying, hey, we got this group that needs to go here. We work with like airlines that sometimes their planes don't plane, and they call us and be like, hey, we need to get this group to Atlanta right now or Charlotte right now. And so some of this stuff pops up just because it just happens. And then other times, people may forget about that part. Like, oh, we actually got to get the group somewhere.
And do you have numerous employees like trying to help you figure out where all these buses are and
Yeah.
where they're going? And I mean, it seems very complicated.
Yeah, there are a lot of people involved, from sales who have to kind of get the information and make sure it's right, the right date, the right time, the right pickup location. There are operation folks who make sure that there's a bus and driver ready to go, and then there's maintenance that makes sure the equipment is up to standards, and then there are mechanics that keep everything going. We run wash and cleaning 7 days a week, so there's those folks. So yeah, it is a big organization. There's a lot of moving pieces, but this is all that we do. So because of that, it kind of comes routine that something happens because we're charter. Every day is different. Everything is different. Every group is different. While we do a lot of the same things, it's just always slightly different.
Yeah.
So, yes, a lot of last minute, oh my gosh, I thought I booked this.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
I mean, I've seen it. I've been a part of more than one organization where we thought we had a bus and it was not actually, in fact, booked. But you are always very kind and
We fix problems.
and fix problems. Exactly.
We fix problems.
This organization could clearly be run, without the idea of taking good care of employees and doing good work. Why has taking care of people and just being a good person meant so much to you?
When we took the time several years ago to really say, what are our core values? By doing that, it starts saying, okay, but now how are we doing that? So our core values are do right, be safe, honor God, and serve others. And so then you start asking yourself, is what I'm doing exhibiting those core values? And so it starts becoming pretty easy when you say, hey, if I want to talk about serving others, how am I serving our employees? yes, it's easy to talk about serving customers, last minute request, we'll figure it out. But what about your employees? What about your vendors? You know, honoring God. So we look at, I can honor God. We participate and we partner with a lot of really good organizations, whether it's by providing service or even financially. But honoring God also means, you know, the faith that we have and the Christian values that we have, we want to make sure that we're sharing those with others because it's an important part of it. And so those are the things that when we really start asking why we do it, we then start looking for ways to say, and then let's do it. Let's do this. Sometimes they're really successful, but sometimes maybe it missed the mark, and that's okay. We try again. There's some things that, you know, we put out some books sometimes and no one took them. Like, well, I guess that's not what anybody, nobody wanted a book. Okay, we tried. But it's our values. It's going back to understanding what our core values are and then making sure that we're doing the things that align with those. Mm-hmm. And then when you start talking about that, what you find is that people want to work with you because they have the same values. And it kind of takes it away from, well, you paid me a little bit more. It is, hey, what you're doing is what I want to do, or I want to be a part of that.
Right.
And so that's why it became important, because you're like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense. So that's what we try to do, is talk about it a lot.
And if they don't align with those values, they won't last long, I'm guessing.
You know, we give them the opportunity to say, here's who we are. I mean, it's a great discussion. As an employee, I have this conversation often and say, I'm a Christian and I have Christian values, but you don't have to be a Christian to work here. And we'll never make you do something that you don't want to do. And if you say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, maybe it's a prayer or something and you want to step out, that's okay. We respect that. But it's also okay when people say, hey, is it okay if I pray? I'm like, sure. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we find, is that it's not that people don't want to be a part of your organization because of the values. They want to, especially when you explain it to them. And we have had some that have said, hey, I'm not a Christian, but I still appreciate the values. Yeah. And we say, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So you are running a large organization. You have a family. You volunteer, active church attender. He attended our church to hear our new pastor.
And I know, it was so good to see you there.
And I wasn't there.
And you weren't there.
I am most of the time there, but I was.
And
very
that's why I
disappointed.
Believe that.
I know you don't think I go to church.
You go to church. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do go to church, and you'll have to come again at some point, or I'll come to your church. Not that. No?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Anyway, thank you for all you do is where I was going with that. But how do you take care of you? How do you have best practices and habits that you do to allow yourself to continue to pour into your organization and your family and all these other things that you do?
It's very easy to be all in work, because when you love something and you want to do it, my nature is also to always think about things and how do I make things better, and I always just want it to be better. So for me, being part of a C12 peer group, I take one day a month to do that, but that also, what I realize is that helps me reset and focus again on what's important. And so part of that is talking about family, talking about your wife, talking about work, talking about the ministry, talking about, my personal health, my wellness, my rest. And so I think that's the biggest thing that helps me, is I have to stop, one day a month, kind of refocus, realize there's some things that's out of place, or I'm trying to do too much generally, or, hey, I should turn things down. But that's how I've been able to just put it in perspective of what's important at that moment, because it's easy to just only focus on the business goals that we have, mm-hmm. and our 90-day plan and our 1-year plan. and lose focus of these other items.
Yeah. I was a guest. Andrew Finney had me at SC12, and they did the Wheel of Life, which is what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Just as a point of reference for anyone listening, it's what is it, 8 or 10 areas probably? Yes. And you rate them from 0 to 10, just where you're at. What I love, I've done the Wheel of Life before, but what I loved about the C12 way they did it is you record from month to month.
Yes.
And so if you're hitting a 3 in finances or whatever, for month after month, somebody in your group can say, hey, what's going on? There's a pattern here. Or I try to be as reflective as I can, but to have that history of, like the seasons that can come and go was really interesting.
That's exactly right. And then you're in an advisory group with other Christian business leaders that understand the Christian mindset's a little bit different. So, for instance, if I am doing great at business, but I'm struggling being a husband. So this is the group that says, hey, what are you doing over here? If I'm doing great in the metrics of, cash flow, and hey, we beat all our cash flow projections, but hey, if I had to give myself a number as a father as a 3 out of 10, what are you doing about that? So it is very humbling and hard, but it's very necessary to self-evaluate, like, how am I doing? Because it's easy to get consumed in the business side of things and the events and the programs, and it is easy to lose track.
And it's hard to be an 8, 9, or 10 in every part of your life all the time, right?
It is. It depends on how you score yourself, but yes.
And if you're honest.
If you're honest.
It
is very hard, because that's just how life works. And we all go through it as a husband, as a father. Like, sometimes things are great at home and sometimes they're not. And I've got high school kids, and sometimes they're high school kids. And
we could talk for an entire
high school
podcast
kids.
About that.
So, you realize that that's what's important, and I need to do something about that. But what's been great about particularly C12 is that people, because it's a national organization, and sometimes people from other cities will come and visit maybe your location because they're making up that. I've had people come speak to me about something in their life is what I needed to hear at that moment. And I'm like, and I just say, you know what, God, thank you. You put this person in my life.
Right.
And that's what I needed to hear. So that's a unique thing about C12.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for all you shared.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else you want people to know?
No, we do like all our university. We like all our universities, and we like all our school teachers. I realized I was talking about school teachers, and I'm like, but not all school teachers are like that, and they're really great people, because we do a lot of field trips.
You didn't say anything bad.
No, other people forget to cancel. Churches do all the time. But no, I don't. I have nothing to say. I am thankful that you're doing this, because I like the fact that there are a lot of good things, and sometimes it's hard for, even for us as a company to express what we're doing. And so giving us this opportunity to say, hey, look, here's something that we're doing. Maybe it'll help you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
That's one of the biggest reasons we do this, because it is, especially when we are trying to be humble. It's hard to kind of dig out what the good things that, especially, nonprofits have to tell about the good work they're doing because they're financially dependent on it. But small businesses and mid-sized businesses and big business, a lot of times they just don't have the opportunity to say, yeah, we take care of our employees the way we should, but this is how we're doing really good things. Yeah. So, and you're doing good things.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on here.
Thank you.